think about plants and sunlight.
Yeah,
It's everywhere, isn't it? It seems so basic.
it does, yeah.
But you sent over some really fascinating material on this, and it got me thinking, are these plants just sort of blindly soaking up rays for food?
Hmm.
Or is there maybe something, I don't know, deeper happening with how they position themselves towards the sun?
That really is the captivating question here, isn't it? You've got the science, the biology we understand pretty well.
Right, the mechanics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then there's this whole other thread from older wisdom traditions suggesting a much more profound connection.
Okay.
It's a place where the scientific view and perhaps the spiritual one, they almost complement each other. They offer different ways to look at the same thing.
Okay, so let's start with the science then. Lay out the basics. When you see a plant, maybe on your windowsill, bending towards the light, what's actually going on? What are the nuts and bolts?
Well, fundamentally, it's a process called phototropism.
Phototropism.
And it's absolutely vital for the plant's survival because plants are autotrophs. They make their own food.
Right. Through photosynthesis, we all learned that one in school.
Exactly. And sunlight is their primary fuel source, basically. They convert that light into chemical energy to live.
So photosynthesis is why they need the light, but how do they actually move towards it? There's no muscle there.
That's where a specific plant hormone comes in. It's called auxin.
Auxin. Okay.
So imagine light hitting one side of the plant stem. What happens is auxin actually concentrates on the other side, the shaded side.
Huh. Interesting. Not the lit side.
No, the shaded side. And auxin's job is to promote cell growth, specifically making the cells longer, elongation.
Ah, I see. So the cells on the dark side start stretching out more.
Precisely. They elongate faster and more than the cells on the sunny side. And because one side is growing longer than the other?
The whole thing bends towards the light source.
Exactly. It causes that characteristic bending or turning motion.
It's really quite an elegant bit of microengineering, isn't it? This tiny molecule, auxin, orchestrating this very visible change.
It really is. You see it everywhere. A vine reaching, like you said, your potted plant adjusting itself day by day.
And it's doing this incredibly precise orientation.
Without a brain.
Right. No brain, no eyes, nothing like a central nervous system as we know it.
Yet, the plant is incredibly attuned. It senses the light direction and responds with this seemingly simple but highly effective mechanism.
It's pure biological efficiency, really, maximizing access to that essential energy.
Definitely survival-driven.
But as you mentioned, the material you shared also pointed towards some very different interpretations of this daily dance with the sun.
Indeed. And this goes way back. For thousands of years, across so many cultures, the sun wasn't just a ball of gas. It was seen as, well, the ultimate life giver.
A source of power, maybe even divinity.
Absolutely. You see it in Vedic traditions, some early Christian thought,
Yeah.
and very clearly in Islam as well. There's this deep acknowledgement of the sun's vital life-sustaining role.
And this connects to that idea you brought up that maybe the natural world itself is in a state of constant praise or acknowledgement. You mentioned a specific verse.
Yes, from the Quran.
Yeah.
It translates roughly as, the heavens and the earth and whatever is in them glorify him.
Wow.
So this perspective invites us to see nature not just as stuff, as inert objects, but maybe as entities that are actively acknowledging their creator, each in their own unique way.
Okay, and that's where this concept of sajda fits in. Tell us about that.
Sajda is the Arabic term for prostration. It's that act of bowing down low, usually in prayer, showing reverence and submission.
Like a physical act of worship.
Exactly. So the question arises, when you watch a plant, day after day, consistently turning, stretching, tilting towards the light, could that be seen as more than just biology? Could it be interpreted as a form of inherent recognition, a kind of silent reverence for the source of its life?
So not just a chemical reaction, but potentially an act of devotion.
Is it only a biochemical necessity, or could there be an element of, let's say, innate devotion expressed through that very orientation? It's a profound question.
It really changes how you look at it, because we tend to think of worship as, human, with ritual, specific words, conscious intent.
Right, we define it in our terms.
But this suggests, well, maybe devotion can look very different. Maybe it's built into the very way things exist and interact with their environment.
And what's compelling, I find, is that it challenges that human-centric viewpoint. Maybe worship isn't limited to language or complex thought.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps that consistent turning towards the light, that fundamental act of seeking what sustains it, maybe that is the plant's expression of devotion, its own form of sajda.
It certainly makes you pause and reconsider our own place in things.
It's humbling, in a way.
Yeah. And it also highlights where science maybe reaches its limits. Science is brilliant at explaining the how, the
Like
mechanism.
oxen, yeah, the measurable stuff.
But maybe it doesn't or can't address the deeper why in that sort of cosmic or spiritual sense.
Precisely. Science gives us this invaluable framework for understanding the physical processes. Phototropism, oxen, cell elongation, fantastic. But the scientific method isn't really designed to tackle questions of inherent purpose or, dare I say, consciousness that might lie beyond testable hypotheses.
And that brings us to some of those plant behaviors you mentioned that seem, well, more than just mechanical, like entire fields of sunflowers.
Oh, yes, the heliotropism in sunflowers, tracking the sun across the sky. That synchronized movement of a whole field.
Yeah.
It feels almost.
Intentional, coordinated,
Something like that, yeah. Or think about what are sometimes called sleep movements in plants, nyctinasty.
where the leaves droop at night and rise again in the morning.
Exactly. Certain plants fold up their leaves or petals at dusk and open them at dawn. Now, science explains this too, of course. It involves changes in water pressure within specific cells, called turgor pressure, influenced by light cycles and temperature.
Which is a perfectly sound explanation. It works.
It does.
And yet, observing it, it feels like more than just plumbing. There's this underlying rhythm, isn't there? This deep connection to the daily cycle of light and dark that feels profound.
And this pushes us right to the edge of our current scientific understanding of consciousness, maybe even sentience in the natural world.
We tend to associate consciousness with complex brains like ours.
Right. But are these phenomena strictly limited to that? Or could there be more fundamental forms of awareness, of responsiveness present in all living things, perhaps even woven into the fabric of the universe itself? It's a huge philosophical question.
It really makes you think about all the hidden intelligence we're slowly uncovering in nature. We now know plants can detect different light wavelengths, right?
Absolutely. They sense red light, blue light, far red light, and respond differently. They know when the days are getting shorter or longer to time flowering or dormancy.
They respond incredibly precisely to seasons. And then there's the communication.
Oh, the underground networks. Communicating through their root systems, often using interconnected fungal networks, the wood wide web, as some call it, sending chemical signals, warnings.
It's astonishingly complex. They know when to grow, when to rest, when to warn their neighbors.
It is. And there's such a stark contrast between these intricate, adaptable, seemingly intelligent behaviors and that older, maybe slightly outdated scientific view of plants as just passive biological machines simply reacting to stuff.
They're clearly not passive. They're actively sensing, processing information, responding in really sophisticated ways to optimize everything.
Constantly interacting with their ecosystem.
If they're capable of all that complexity sensing, light quality, communicating underground, timing seasons, is it really such a massive leap to consider that their constant orientation towards the sun?
Might have a motivation beyond just the raw biochemical need for photosynthesis.
Yeah. Could there be more to it?
Well, think about an analogy from human traditions again. In Islam, Muslims face the Kaaba in Mecca during prayer.
Specific direction, a focal point.
Exactly, a qibla. A direction that unites worshippers in their devotion. Could the sun, in a similar but distinctly plant-like way, serve as a kind of focal point for them?
Not just for energy, but as an inherent orientation towards, well, the source of life itself.
It's a possibility to consider. Maybe it's driven by necessity and something akin to devotion, intertwined.
So perhaps worship isn't confined to what we humans recognize, the rituals, the prayers, the articulated beliefs.
Maybe it's more fundamental. Perhaps it's an inherent quality of existence itself embedded in the natural world, an inclination to acknowledge the source expressed in myriad ways.
So the next time any of us see a plant, bathed in sunlight on a windowsill, really leaning into it.
Maybe we can hold both ideas in mind. Instead of thinking only photosynthesis, which is true and important, perhaps we could also allow for the thought, subhanallah, an expression meaning glory be to God, seeing it as an acknowledgement of that profound, maybe even sacred, connection.
Because it's possible that in their own silent, green, photosynthesizing way, these plants are perpetually engaged in their own unique form of sajda.
A constant quiet bowing towards the light that sustains them. A sacred act, perhaps, performed in their own beautiful, natural manner.
That's a really powerful thought to end on. And if exploring these kinds of intersections where science meets wonder, maybe faith, different ways of seeing if that resonates with you, then definitely make sure you subscribe to Let's Discuss Daily.
We love diving into these kinds of topics.
We do. Always looking for those unconventional truths and new perspectives hidden in plain sight.